the place to be for news, notes, interviews, and current events for all issues military and veteran related. If you or someone you know has ever worn the uniform of the U.S. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, or National Guard or Reserves, you've come to the right place. American Warrior Radio, right here on the Talk to Me station, WMEL AM 1300, sponsored by AVET Project. This program is all about supporting our troops. So all you patriotic Americans out there, get comfortable and let's kick the tires and light the fires. As y'all know, my name is Garen Cohn. I'm an Air Force veteran and a retired legal advocate for veterans, as well as founder of AVET Project. But you know, I never fly through the airwaves alone. As always, I've got...
Good morning. My name's Glenn McGuffey, manager of your Brevard County Veteran Services team, and I'm a retired Air Force guy, so at least two of us today will be coming at you as ex-blue suiters. I'm excited today because we've got a very special guest who's going to bring us some great information about legal services, predominantly focused on veteran claim type issues, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about discharge upgrades and those kind of things, because that comes up from time to time. And this is for past and present military members here in Central Florida. And why don't you introduce our guest, Garen?
It would be my pleasure, Glenn. Everybody listening, I'd like to introduce Shelley Campbell from Community Legal Services of Mid-Florida. Say hello, Shelley.
Hello.
We're so glad to have you here with us this morning because you are somebody that's definitely involved in helping out our warriors as well as their dependents regarding legal issues that arise.
Absolutely, yes, and thank you for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Can you give us a little background on you and your history, education, what have you?
Sure. I am an attorney at Community Legal Services in Mid-Florida. I started there a couple years ago, and we started a program basically to focus efforts on low-income and homeless veterans. It was kind of our belief that statistically veterans weren't getting the legal advocacy that they needed in Central Florida. Also, there really weren't any programs to provide that to them pro bono. So the goal was to
Pro bono, what's that word mean?
I'm sorry. Basically at no cost to the veteran. We wanted to create a program where we could assist them, but that we weren't charging like a private attorney would. We believe that veterans shouldn't have to pay for the legal advocacy that they so rightfully deserve at no cost. So we started that program about 2 years ago. I'm very happy to say we've probably served close to 400 veterans in Central Florida.
Wow.
So
outstanding.
It's very good.
There's quite a demand out there is what you're saying.
It's unbelievable. It's I know, as you guys definitely know, there's definitely not a lack of demand.
Well, the Community Legal Services of Mid-Florida, are there other agencies here doing the same type of work that you're aware of, or are you guys pretty much the lone show in town?
When we started the program in 2009, we were the first veterans legal advocacy project in the state of Florida. Soon after that, another project began in Miami, and I'm happy to say now there is one in the Panhandle in Pensacola as well, so we're watching it grow.
Now, Glenn, as the supervisor of the Brevard County Veterans Service Office, you deal with clients coming in needing free representation, and of course you guys are all accredited in your office. I'm guessing some of the same type of services would be offered, yes?
Well, absolutely. I think from what I was looking here that Shelley and her group do is pretty much across the board, everything from claims to discharge upgrades. And the claims business is the big one. Because it's such a confusing process, and if you're not well versed and understand what the VA is supposed to be doing versus what they are doing in many cases, as a veteran you're just floating in the wind. So it's outstanding to get that extra help in the Central Florida region that Shelley and the group that she's with provide for our veterans.
Shelley, what got you interested in serving the veteran population?
I'm actually from Pensacola. I grew up in Florida, and
So a pretty good military presence
absolutely.
up in that neck of the woods.
Oh yes, definitely. We're surrounded by bases. Lots of family members that are veterans or active or retired. And I myself almost went into the Air Force right out of high school, but I received a scholarship, so I was able to go to college. But growing up in an area like Pensacola, basically your options are you get scholarship and you go to college, or you go in the military. So it's just really been my pleasure to get my legal education and then come back and put it to work for active duty and veterans.
So on a personal level, you've got a heart and a passion to serve.
Definitely. And my little brother is active duty Air Force, so.
Fantastic. We appreciate his service for
Thank
sure.
you.
Where's he stationed? Is he stateside or overseas?
He's Herbert Field right now. So,
Wonderful.
yes.
Do you know what his career specialty code is, or
I
what
don't.
he's doing?
He is. I know that it's something to do with electrical engineering.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Well,
good for him.
Yeah, exactly. We like to hear stories like that. Getting to some of the heart of the matter, and AVET Project is always out there. We get bombarded with the need that veterans and even current warfighters have as they go through the process of maybe getting boarded out of the military. They encountered a situation where they're not necessarily fit for duty, and they're going through the medical evaluation board process. And I've shared with you some of these
Right.
stories. We're not going to go into specifics, folks, but it's suffice to say they're getting lowballed a lot of times from
Absolutely.
the DoD.
Right.
Do you see any of that in your practice?
I haven't saw it that much. However, I've read a lot about it, and you and I have had mutual clients that have been going through this. And yeah, there's definitely a process that seems to be they're finding active military unfit for service, but they're not rating them at a level that allows them to get the appropriate retirement or benefits that they actually deserve. And I know the process on the back end of going back in and getting all that changed is just really lengthy and really stressful process.
Yeah, and it is still a continuing problem. They have come out with the Physical Disability Review Board, where people that were in from 9/11 through the end of December in 2009, why they cut it off is beyond me.
Oh, because everything got healed all of a sudden.
Yeah, and they have a pretty high success rate in overturning, if you will, the decisions that were made and lowballed them, as Garen was saying, where they didn't get military medical retirement, and turn it into military medical retirement and get them a rating that more accurately reflects the degree and severity of the injuries that they had that caused them not to be suitable for active duty anymore.
And interestingly enough, it all basically boils down to legal issues.
Right.
You know, you've got on the active side of the house, active duty, Title 10 in the United States Code. Once you become a veteran, you're governed under Title 38. You know all about this. And there's got to be a marriage between the two. And I know the DOD and the VA are working to make that happen.
Right.
But like Glenn's scenario he was talking about, these guys and gals that are getting separated involuntarily, they maybe want to do an entire career. Maybe they're even close to the end of their career.
Mm-hmm.
And nevertheless, the service, for whatever reason, wants to push them out the door. And for all you listeners out there, if one of our warfighters has a disability that's impacting their ability to do their job, their fitness for duty, as Glenn said, then they can be awarded a 0% evaluation, 10, 20. If they get it 30 or above, the benefits really kick in and they literally become retired, medically retired. But what Glenn and I have seen repeated, and possibly you too,
Right.
and with Michael LaGrande from the Physical Disability Board of Review, the PDBR, which is an Air Force run program, there's 70,000 plus vets out there that were, let's just call it what it is, lowballed
Right.
and sent out the door. And as Glenn mentioned, a goodly portion of those, some 50% of those cases, are recommended for upgrade to. Have you seen any of these cases? Have you seen people making complaints that, hey, I'm getting shoved out the door and I don't want to go?
I actually have not. And I think that a lot of that has to do with misinformation and not. I think when a lot of people are involuntary separated, they really don't realize the impact that it is that they're not at that 30%. Because there is such a huge difference. You know, the 30%, you get the medical retirement, you get the TRICARE, you get everything that you're entitled to. And I have a feeling that over the next couple years, people are going to get information as to that they should have been rated at a higher rating, and we're probably going to see an influx of those cases.
So it's an education issue too.
Yeah, exactly. And the education is not available for them while they're still on active duty, I assure you of that, because I hear them tell me what they didn't get that I think, having spent 22 years in the military, they should have got in the way of legal representation, adequate legal representation. And there's a solution there that they are pursuing, but they seem to be pursuing in slow speed. And that's a proposal that came out a few years ago, and that's to get the military out of the business of rating these people. The military determines whether or not they're medically fit to remain on active duty and turns it over to the VA, and the VA does a rating. Because the big example we see all the time is they might get 20% rating by, I'll just pick Army because I'm Air Force. they
No
get
bias there.
They get 20% rating by the Army, and they turn around and file a claim to the VA for the same thing and get 60%. So there's something really wrong with a system like that.
And the only avenue for redress they had at the time was to go through the Board for Correction of Military Records and request a change in their reason for separation, whereas now with the PDBR they can actually, if they were boarded, because there's a lot of folks that get out, as you know, Shelley, they get out of the service, they haven't been told anything, they haven't gone to a transition assistance program class, here's your DD-214, have a nice day, and then they file with the VA and find they're 70% disabled. So they should have been boarded, they should have been given that consideration and weren't.
Right.
So there's just all kinds of issues that come up. And I think we owe it to our warfighters and even their families, because they're making the sacrifices right alongside these guys and gals.
Right. And the medical insurance, people don't realize how important that is to a family. Especially the veterans that are coming out now, they can't find employment. So it's not like they're jumping straight into a career and they're being provided medical insurance. And of course, if they're a veteran, they can get signed up through VA healthcare, but the TRICARE is just such an important benefit for veterans and their families.
Exactly.
And to see it kind of taken away from them inappropriately is very frustrating.
I'm sure. Describe for our audience a few of the services that you provide at Community Legal Services of Mid-Florida. You mentioned that you do everything from initial claims. Do you do, let's say a claimant comes to you and he or she's having a tough time and they really don't know what's going on with the VA, but they heard they may be eligible for benefits. He busted his knee up or something. How do you handle the case from there?
Well, basically what I would do is have an initial consultation with the client, bring them in, talk to them, ask them the facts, try to get an understanding of what they were going through or what the injury was and where they are now. And then we really try to assist with requesting all the documents, requesting the personnel file, requesting the medical records, and then doing a very, very thorough search of those records to put together a well-grounded claim. And basically we'll file the initial claim or we'll file an appeal to the board. If it's at a notice of disagreement, really whatever stage of the claim that the client's at, we can assist with that. I do also, I'm admitted to the Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims, so we can file appeals with the court.
This would be after somebody had gone through the regular process, been denied, filed an appeal, the Board of Veterans Appeals, where I used to work, has denied them, and then the issue can be considered for the Court of Veterans Appeals. So you pick it up from there. If somebody came to you with a BVA denial, you could actually represent them?
Right. Definitely. We could represent them the whole way through the appeal with the court.
And before we went on the air, you were discussing a case, again, in general terms, you had some success recently.
I did. I got a very, very good decision on a Gulf War Syndrome case. As we all three know, that's a very frustrating area of VA benefits. We have all these veterans coming out from the Gulf War who have all of these undiagnosed and really, really chronic disabilities that no one can really explain. And the regulation, without getting too specific or too legal, but there's two avenues basically to get benefits under the Gulf War presumption. And the VA is notorious for basically making that decision, lumping it all together and not appropriately applying the regulation. So we actually got a full remand for a vet.
Which means the High Court sent it back and said, fix this, redo this.
They said, send it back down and get an appropriate examination and actually evaluate it under the regulations as they stand. So it really gives us an opportunity at that point to step in and possibly get our own private doctor to evaluate the veteran and slide that in. At the court level, you can't provide any new evidence. So, but if you can get it remanded back down to the board, then you have an opportunity to further build the claim.
Wonderful. Well, Congratulations
Thank
on
you.
your success there. I hope the Warrior understands the significance of having something like that, because that's big news.
It is very good, yes.
Yeah, and while we're on the topic of appeals, I want to remind everybody out there listening that appeals is something in the VA that has time limits on certain aspects, from when you file the notice of disagreement with the rating decision. You've got a year to do that. Then when it gets to the Board of Veterans Appeals, if you disagree with that and want to go to the court, like Shelley was talking about, you only have 120 days to do that, and they don't grant waivers to that. If you send it on the 121st day, you're out of luck.
So Glenn, touch on that again. Let's say I'm a vet, I put my claim in, I got denied. I can come to your office. What's my time frame to file that, what you call it, a notice of disagreement?
Notice of disagreement is the first step in an appeal, and that you've got a year from the date of the letter that transmitted the rating decision to you to file that and get it in the VA's hands. Well, actually get a date stamp on it under business law rules.
So if I went to my mailbox today and got my rating decision that was dated December 10th, I have till December 10th of next year to
Yes,
file
sir.
the NOD. And then what happens?
Well, then what happens is you're going to get two choices. One is go ahead and send it to the Board of Veterans Appeals for me, in which case you're going to have to do another document called a Form 9, or you can select what they call a decision review officer, which is a seasoned adjudication officer in the regional office for that adjudicated your claim, but is not the same person, and maybe in a lot of cases will be much more knowledgeable, and you've got it. You know, that's an extra chance to get approved, because if the decision review officer still continues to deny your claim, then you can still go to the Board of Veterans Appeals rather than skip that process. I always recommend it, because you got about, last time I saw statistics, a 25% chance or somewhere around there of winning at the decision review officer level.
Which isn't bad.
That's not bad.
But if you get a continued denial, you can perfect your appeal with a Form 9 and proceed.
That's correct. And our method of practice is that we spend a lot of effort on the notice of disagreement, because we want to win at that level, at the earliest level possible for our client, rather than send it to the board. And if you're not in a special category like old people that have, old veterans, let's put it that way, old veterans that have claims that have been pending over a year and those kind of things.
Or severe financial hardship, something that would...
Yeah, and it could take 3 to 5 years right now to get a decision out of the Board of Veterans Appeals.
Well, and Shelley, I wanted to ask about that, because there's probably some misunderstandings or misconceptions about representation. You being an attorney, working for this firm, you provide pro bono services, but there are what we'll call agents in Central Brevard that are taking apparently powers of attorney from veterans that want to file these claims and working them. Now, whether they've made any fee arrangements with the VA or not, that doesn't even kick in until you've filed a notice of disagreement.
Right. If a veteran is interested in hiring a private attorney, they can't pay for those services until a notice of disagreement has been filed on the case. So basically at the appeal level. I think one of the reasons we've kind of had success with this program is because we don't charge anything, so we can get started at the very, very beginning. Just like when someone comes to the Veteran Service Office. If you get that claim at the beginning, the success rate of actually working it all the way through is just so much higher.
And you've mentioned that many times, Glenn.
Yeah, about 4 times higher, and that's because, as I mentioned before, it's such a confusing system for the person who's not well versed in how the VA does things. And I find, Shelley, I wonder if you find kind of the same thing, that what people are usually missing is the right kind of evidence with the claim. They just file the claim on a form and think
That's
something's
exactly
going to
it.
happen.
Right.
Well, you mentioned that well-grounded process, which it's a 3-pronged process. Can you describe that?
Well, the well-grounded requirement?
Sure.
Well, basically for myself, what I try to do is, of course you want to establish the service. You establish the active military service with the DD-214. You want to establish the injury or the occurrence or whatever that is. So
It happened while on active duty or active
Exactly.
duty for training for Guard and Reserves.
Right. And you can absolutely get your personnel file. I hear a lot, and I'm sure that you guys do too, from people that will say, "Oh, I just can't get my records. I've tried and I can't get them." And I have never had that happen. Every time I've requested a personnel file, it's came right to me. So it's not, that's not an intimidating process. So I would really encourage any veterans to just request it and have it. Have a record, a copy for yourself.
And folks, you can do that by going on avetproject.org. Get online, go to avetproject.org, go to the benefits page, click on that tab. Halfway down, you'll see the EVET Rex hyperlink. Follow the prompts. You can request your 201, your personnel file, copy of your DD-214, even a one-time free issue of all your medals and awards. Once you have that information, you're going to have your service medical records too. It's going to assist in developing this well-grounded claim.
Absolutely.
And we're coming up to a break here at the bottom of the hour on American Warrior Radio, so we ask you to stay tuned. We're going to come back with Shelly Campbell. So, folks, just stay tuned. We'll be with you on the other side of the break here on American Warrior Radio. I could